Our next guest, I am really, really excited to talk to. I've now had the opportunity to have a couple of conversations with Dr. Charryse Johnson, who is unbelievable. The energy, the heart, the soul from this veteran psychotherapist, author, keynote speaker, and she focuses on integrative mental health, mindfulness, all using neuroscience. Here's the reality. Oh, thank you, Ashley, for letting me know that. She canceled. We didn't see that. Credit where credit is due. But Ian missed out. Ian, I hope that's okay. All right, so Charryse, I've been seeing you even promote this time together. You, my dear, are fire. And I just pulled you up. I saw your request. Let's get you in here. Let's continue the conversation. Let's continue the collective impact. Hell yeah, here she is. What's up, girl?
What's up? I feel like I need theme music.
Dude, I'm starting to feel that way.
Let's go.
Bring it every single time.
Why not?
So,
right? Why not?
You got to remind me something, because I feel like I lost my mind today, and I think there was a miscommunication potentially on my team. You've already been on this live, haven't you?
I have never been on this live. This is our first time together.
When was it? I swear we met
with brain freeze on
David's show, our Breaking Beyond show.
Yes.
But this is your first time on this show.
First time.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I remembered communicating with you, and I remembered how fired you are, and I can't wait to jump in today. So
let's go.
I introduced you a little bit based on who I believe you to be.
Sure.
Can you introduce who you are in your words?
Ooh, in my words, warrior, survivor, fighter, period. Like, that's how I see my life. I see my life as every day I wake up and go, me? Really? Like, I'm humbled, I'm honored, I get to do this. If you would have told little me that I would have the opportunity to pour into anyone, I would have been like, so I literally see myself from the lens of every opportunity that I have is a gift, is a privilege, is a I'm not supposed to be here kind of thing, when I think about things. But that's what I want people to know more than anything, because that's what drives me.
I love that on so many levels. And I also really appreciate your clarity on understanding the roots of our past and the impact of what those look like. You know, you might remember our brief conversation on that show. I'm often known as the garbage man because I help people identify and remove the trash from their past or transform it right into treasure or wealth generating opportunities. Give me a little bit of insight into your path of development, your path of understanding based on your past that puts you into a position where you're helping so many others.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I think of when you say that, when I was a little girl, which will be no surprise, I got in a lot of trouble for talking. I had great grades, and it was always, high five. It was always, talks too much in class. But I also had this incredible mother who shielded me and was like, yeah, we got to work on this. But she was like, your mouth is either going to be your greatest tool or it's going to be your greatest struggle. And something about that stuck with me, and that's one of the things that I've tried to develop. Like when I was little and I would be mad, she would be like, okay, give me a speech about this. And I'd be like, are you kidding me? I am furious. And she's like, but I need you to know how to communicate even in the midst of everything that you do. But I also remember developing that skill, because being able to communicate is still a skill, and wanting to figure out, well, how do I help people in a way that is also authentic to me and doesn't leave out my story, which in mental health can be dicey because a lot of therapists were taught, it's about them, which it is, and don't share your story. But I'm like, there's no way I'm going to have someone sit down and pour out everything in their life and not tell them anything, that helps them understand.
By the way, I think that's one of the most toxic, damaging pieces of advice that is given to counselors, therapists, across the board, because they end up being afraid to actually be fucking real.
Correct. And I think, and I've seen it, right? So I've seen the more I was real and the more I showed up, people all over the place from all walks of life. And I would be like, I'm curious, what made you want to, partner with me? And they're like, because you're real. Because I know you're going to tell me the truth. And I was like, that I will, in grace and love, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So developing that and owning that. So I'm also about owning your real and knowing that every space is not for you, but the spaces that are, walk through them or create them.
I think part of the reason I thought that you've already been on this show and that we've had more conversations than we have is because we have such deep
Yeah.
alignment in the way that we view the world.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big believer that we suffer for four
Mm-hmm.
reasons. We suffer for the things that are left unsaid, the things that we lack permission to feel or say, the
Yeah.
things that we lack the words to articulate or understand, or the things
Yeah.
that are left undone.
Woo!
I believe as
Yeah.
healers, right?
Yeah.
As healers, part of our job is to alleviate the level of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I tell my truth, whenever I give my perspective,
Yes.
whenever I talk about the perils of my past, the shit I'm still struggling with,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're all human, right?
Oh.
What do I do in that situation? I give people permission to feel
Right.
and say something they may not have otherwise,
Right.
and words to articulate that empowers them to act and do and
Yeah.
move through some of the stuff that's
Yeah.
keeping them stuck.
Yeah.
And so I love that you called attention to that
Yeah.
one factor too,
Mm-hmm.
because that I think is one of the biggest damaging elements in therapy and why so many people stop going back.
Yeah.
Because what it does in many cases is just gets people more aware of all the ways they should be judging themselves
Correct.
versus understanding that we're all the same,
Yeah.
even those that have expertise
Right.
that can help them.
For sure. And we're all struggling. I was just literally having this conversation yesterday with somebody. And so in that same concept of voice and what's not being said and what's not being said authentically, we talked about the concept of speaking with accuracy. And not accuracy like, oh, I need to sound good or a certain way, but like this is an accurate reflection of my truth, because a lot of people talk and it's not true. They communicate things that are completely different than what they believe. So those four things I think are crucial, and they're harder than a lot of people expect.
Well, I 100% agree with that. And here's the other side of that. When we're looking at harder versus easier,
Mm-hmm.
at our retreat, we put people through physical experiences because I think that so many people learn physically first.
Yeah.
Right? It's about something tangible that can be seen, felt, understood. Yeah. And so one of the things that we did with this concept of self-protection was we had a boxing class. and the guy who was teaching the boxing class in the very beginning of the class said, "It is easier to hurt people.
Yeah.
It is harder to not hurt people."
Yeah.
Right? And so his whole point was, even through what you just said, it's like we have to understand what the overall impact is. And in the theme of boxing, you said something right out of the gate that resonated deeply with me, but I want to ask, and if I have your permission, even challenge slightly. Okay? Yeah. I viewed myself as a fighter for most of my life as well, until I started to realize that fighting actually never got me exactly what I wanted, because it forced aside instead of surrendering to the fact that the gift is always in the gray area. Now, there's been a lot of growth and development. I want to be really clear here. I'm in no way attacking the fighter, because I was for most of my life.
Feeling attacked. I'm following.
But what I want to understand is why does the word fighter resonate so deeply with you? Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And where does the concept of surrender integrate with the concept of fighting?
Yeah. So when I think about fight, it may not come the way most people think. So I love boxing. Due to my husband, you can thank him for that. And boxers know that the fight is not over until you refuse to get back up. It's not called. You can be against the ropes. You can even be down for a moment, but the fight is not called until you surrender and give up. So two things I'll say. One, fight for me is knowing how to fight for the peace that I need, where I can speak up, where I feel safe and protected, to fight for the space to move, to evolve, to not be boxed in. So my fight is about, no one will tell me how to box in or what I should be like. I'm fighting to show up in life the way I want to, whether that's, I might be a Black woman that people are used to being animated, but sometimes I'm quiet, and I love yoga and I love different kinds of music, and I will fight to make that relevant so that people go, I'm going to stop trying to read her because she's not a book. When it comes to the concept of surrender, I think the biggest thing for us to surrender to is our needs. We surrender to people, we surrender, we compromise, but I'm all about surrendering to, what do I need today? What do I need at this moment? Whether that is gray, whether I do need something to be black and white, but I'm more about ebb, flow, and harmony versus needing to be in specific places. So that's my concept of what I mean.
Beautifully articulated, my friend. Yeah. Beautifully articulated. I love the words that you chose. All right, so I need to understand this, because I'm like this as well. You self-identify as a huge daredevil. What does that mean to you?
I do.
What do you do?
There's about nothing that I will not do. So I have been bungee jumping and flying off of a plane over the coast of Africa, going across zip lines in torrential rain. Like, there's pretty much nothing wouldn't do. I monitor that because my husband is not a daredevil. And so he's like, honey, we have children. Like, I need you to come back, or don't tell me later. We went to Africa, me and a group of women, a couple years ago, or last summer, and we went on a safari. And I was like a couple of feet away from a lion, which was the most epic thing in the world. My husband was terrified. I loved every bit of it. I felt calm and serene. So you tell me where to be, and I'm pretty much there.
I love that. You know, I would tell you that I've always been that way myself. Look at my wife. She just commented, that sounds familiar. I'm that guy.
So your wife and my husband can be friends while we
They
go
can
on.
hang out, because she, like, you know, she's one of those that'll get on a jet ski and go like 10 miles an hour.
That
and be
is
like,
my husband.
you know,
He's like, woo. And I'm like, you're not moving.
I'm like, this is boring. What are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm on that same page. You know, so I don't remember if I shared this with you, but last time, I don't know if I said this, but I was run over by a truck when I was a kid, and my arm was torn from my body.
Oh.
Reattached, 24 surgeries, obviously tons of trauma, lots of repair, lots of work. But though I always had like this daredevil mentality to me, and I was always born that way, I do feel like this brush with death took it to a whole nother level, where I almost had to be borderline on the edge of death to feel alive. You work with a lot of people who have deep levels of trauma,
Yeah.
who are working through types of things, who, you know, might be self-identified daredevils.
Yeah.
What role do you think that historical pain, historical trauma has in our need to have our adrenaline running at the highest of high levels?
A huge need, because when you have a traumatic experience or historical trauma in place, it fires off your system and keeps you at this level of adrenaline, of fight, flight, or freeze, right? And that whole fight and that push. So a lot of times those individuals will kind of seek out daredevils if they've made it in the right way, but they may also seek out impulse, which is the same thing, but not always great, because they're used to it. Their system, when they were younger, got used to that flowing through your body. So I think there's a balance to it, because you also have to know how to get comfortable and rest. And so I will often encourage them, what would it be like for you to have that urge and then do something different? And is that really coming from a physical sensation or habit? And what's the payoff? Like, what would be different? Like, I'll even ask you, like, if you couldn't be a daredevil anymore, how do you think that would impact you?
Well, I've slowly learned over the last decade how to not be a daredevil in every situation.
Okay.
But it's through the exact concept of what you just said. I had to learn how to actually be still. I had to learn how to go inward. I had to recognize that sometimes movement is stillness.
Yes.
Sometimes growth is coming in a different way. I had to really understand how to regulate my nervous system differently. I had to understand what was I actually doing, moving myself through the world. Now, I will tell you, in the moments where pain or other injuries have given me the inability to move physically, that can be a challenge for me still. Because it is a part of how I identify with myself, is how I move through the world, physically even. And so who would I be? How would I be? How would I operate without being a daredevil? I don't think that I would be 100% me. But the reality of it is that I was too far to one end of the spectrum. And to me, it's actually about understanding how to regulate and balance between both sides, because I think we need to feed those pieces. But for me, it also was the healing aspect of recognizing that a lot of what I was doing was, in a lot of ways, also numbing. It was avoiding. It was avoidance behavior. It was challenging. It was painful. It was ways that I could still ignite that feeling of being alive. And so I would always push it to the limit. Case in point, I used to deadlift 400 pounds. I don't say that to brag. I did it because I was trying to prove to myself and prove to the world, but I created damage in my body when an imbalance already existed, because I was pushing it to a level that wasn't healthy.
That's the key. Knowing when you're creating damage. I
gotta say hi to Flex Lewis real quick. Flex Lewis, 7-time Mr. Olympia. He's a buddy of mine. He just jumped on. I have to say hello.
My brother is a retired, well, not really retired. He's a bodybuilder. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
he's flexing.
He's an incredible, but he and I have had many of these same conversations about pushing it to the limit, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a balance, but you said the key. It's knowing when that limit is damaging you and it's no longer helpful. I always tell people, healing from your trauma isn't about being able to handle chaos. It's about being able to experience joy. It's about opening yourself up to something different that you are unfamiliar with.
About
and it's
to exist inside the chaos and still be okay, because that's life.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I absolutely adore you, my dear. Our next
Hey.
guest this year,
All
I
right.
want to invite you onto my long form podcast.
Let's
What part
do
of the
it.
country are you in?
So I'm in East Coast in Charlotte, North
Okay.
Carolina.
You ever make it out to the West Coast?
I do. A couple times a year. My daughter lives in LA. So you let
All
me
right.
know and I'll get
When
there.
next time you're coming out to LA, I want you to make a pit stop in Phoenix because I want to
Okay.
have you in my home studio. Let's
I
sit
will
down and have a long
be
form
in
interview.
Phoenix in November as well. So
Okay.
I'll let you know.
So Ashley was just watching this. She'll be the one to coordinate
Yeah.
with you because I can't schedule to save my
No,
life.
same.
But when you're here in November, let's make sure you sit down in our home studio. I want to take a long form interview with you.
All right, let's do it. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too, my friend. You
All
take care
right.
of yourself, okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, I want everybody to go follow Dr. Charryse. She is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I thought that we had communicated way more than we have because of the congruence, because of the connection, because of how we're showing up, because of how she's working with other people, because of the work she has done. And part of why I do this is I want you guys to know other individuals who can change your life, who can transform the way you feel about yourself, who can help you grow as individuals. Dr. Charryse is definitely one of those, and I want to make sure that she gets all the love and appreciation that is possible. She'll be on our longer form podcast, but I do want everybody to go check her out. She is all about mindfulness, all about growth, all about overcoming obstacles, and she has a book. She's an author called Expired Mindsets. Go find it, go read it, go learn. I promise you will see the impact.